Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for one of our free live classes here in the Homeschool Quest. Today I have with me Mr. Scott Powell, a historian and teacher over at Knowable World. We're going to be learning about a pivotal point in American history and answering the question, would you sign the Declaration of Independence? So in this 30-minute class, we are going to learn why America's leaders rebelled against their mother country, Great Britain, why they believed a new country needed to be created, who did and didn't sign the Declaration of Independence, and what happened to the signers and what the true cost of freedom was. Go ahead and download the printable fact sheet so that you can fill it in during the class. I went ahead and shared it in the comments. I would love to hear where you guys are joining us from and who you have joining us, what your ages are. I would love to hear all about you guys so I can give you a shout out. Scott, I would love to hear a little bit about your background as a historian and teacher.
Okay, terrific. Yeah, well, I've been teaching online now for over 20 years. So I started at a small private academy in Southern California, and then I started to learn about this wonderful thing, which 20 years ago was pretty new, homeschooling. And I got excited about that and started providing lessons to homeschoolers, like I say, about 20 years ago. And that at the time was called History at Our House. And it's just evolved over time, and now it's becoming Knowable World. And so Knowable World is online classes using Zoom. It's also recorded classes available via YouTube, and it spans the entire range. We welcome students right from kindergarten on up to 12th grade.
So you really share for the full gambit going through history. So tell me a little bit about the unique difference that Knowable World has with the approach that you guys take.
Right. Well, that's definitely the key, I think. Knowable World approaches history in a different way than just about anybody will expect. That's because I over time, having taught students of all ages, including adults, I've clearly come to recognize that traditional history has some serious problems, some serious issues, which is precisely why a lot of homeschoolers are not sure how to approach the subject. And there are, of course, a wide variety of ideas out there about what to do about it. And in large part, we have this community of folks that are trying to figure out what to do with this subject. Why should that be necessary? Well, sadly, the answer is because historians have failed us. I'm just going to be blunt. They should have done a better job, and they have not. And so we find ourselves in a difficult predicament, which is most of us, I think, feel, despite the history education or lack thereof that we received, that there's something there, some potential hidden in the subject, and we're still looking for that answer. What can we do with this subject? What can we do to make it interesting? What can we do to make it engaging? What can we do to make it memorable and useful? And these are difficult questions, but there are answers. And the Knowable World approach is all about, should I be sharing my slides now, or are we already getting into slides? Because I do have that in my slides.
Okay, I'll go into slides.
I can go, cuff here. What I can say is that at Knowable World, history is the revelation and explanation of the world we live in. So that's an approach that I call present centrism. That's a big sounding term, and not everybody's going to immediately know what it is I'm referring to there. But hopefully by taking free classes like this one and having a chance to see some of the other free materials we have out there, that people will begin to realize what's going on at Knowable World is precisely that we want to make the world we live in knowable to students. We want to make it so that people understand the world. And as it turns out, history is absolutely indispensable in order to help us understand how we got here. And in order to do that, though, we can't just treat history as the study of the past. We can't just get caught up in an encyclopedia of facts that we have to try to memorize and then, of course, forget. And then we find ourselves feeling like, what was that all for? And who cares? These are natural responses. I felt that way when I was younger, and most of us end up feeling that way. Knowable World is all about not having to go through that. Knowable World is all about seeing the connection between the past and the present from the very beginning. So that's what we're striving for. We want to be the best place where kids can go, where families can go in order to understand the world we live in.
I love that. Okay, is everyone ready to start the class where we're going to be diving into the Declaration of Independence? Do you want to share with them what the fact sheet is looking like so that they can know to download that?
Right, exactly. So this is just a little screen share of that. It's a pretty simple printable. We've got a couple questions, 3 questions here with answers that you can write in based on what you're hearing in the class, and I'll probably try to hint that that's one of those questions. And then we have just one of these boxes down here with a column on the left and a column on the right where people can draw lines from the various founding fathers, as they're called, and some of the prominent facts about them, including whether or not they signed the Declaration of Independence. So it's a simple matter of just connecting the characters on the left with a line over to the relevant facts on the left, on the right, pardon me.
And we are going to be giving away a whole month of live classes from Knowable World that are going to be starting this fall for anyone that is attending live. So be sure to comment your answers as he's asking questions so that you have more chances to be able to enter to win that giveaway. I'm really looking forward to diving in. Okay, if everyone has had a chance to be able to download that, I think that we're ready to start.
Okay, terrific. I might be repeating myself just a little bit here from where we started earlier as we were welcoming people. And please do go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat and let me know where you're from and perhaps a grade level and anything you might like to share right off the bat about what you know about this particular topic. And Amelia will help me to make sure that all of those comments and any questions that come up are addressed as they appear in the chat. So very briefly, the topic today is, would you sign the Declaration of Independence? This is, of course, a very short introductory class, so we're not going to dive into details, but we're just going to try to cover a few interesting high points here. And if you're, of course, interested to know more, then where should you go? Well, if you've got a K-2 student, you can begin the Knowable World program even at that age. And so even students at that young age can enjoy the History Detectives program, as we now call it, as part of Knowable World. And then, of course, if you really want to get into it, Knowable World includes classes. The program used to be known as History at Our House, but now it's known as Knowable World. And we have classes for students from live classes for students from 3rd all the way to 12th grade. And in addition to today's live class, if you want to try out a longer class, which is an introduction to a major topic, we have introductory classes for elementary and junior high students that are running as we speak. And there's one coming up on Thursday. There's classes on Chinese history, Europe and Russia, ancient Greece and Rome, ancient Egypt, as well as American history, of course. And one, I think our giveaway today, if I'm not mistaken, Amelia, is we're giving away a sample pack of all of those recordings. So we have that as something that I think we're going to be giving away. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, so let's dive in here to the topic of the day. Would you sign the Declaration of Independence? First of all, let's get into what is the Declaration of Independence. And how can we tell today in the world that we live in that it most certainly still matters? Well, it's actually pretty obvious and fun, right? On the 4th of July, we have the wonderful fireworks and other types of celebrations that you're going to find throughout America, right? And so that is the sign. That is the yearly activity that we have in America that says, yeah, we are remembering the birthday of the country. Now, one kind of curious thing about the birthday of the country is that when the United States was first created, the people that were responsible for it, some of the people that we're going to be featuring today, known as the Founding Fathers, actually thought that we'd be having the fireworks on the 2nd of July, not the 4th. So I wonder if anybody wants to take, chat a little answer as to why they think that there might have been an alternate birthday. Why would it be 2 days earlier than the one that we're so accustomed to? What happened on the 2nd of July? You see, here is one of the famous founding fathers. His name was John Adams, who later became the 2nd president of the United States. John Adams wrote to his wife and said to her, he wrote on the 3rd of July, he wrote to her and said, the 2nd day of July, 1776, will be the most memorable epoch in the history of America. The word epoch here is used as, let's say, milestone. Just means kind of a moment. It has different meanings. So he's saying, this is going to be, the 2nd of July is going to be the one that everybody remembers. So why would he think that? Does anybody know? Because the truth is, today, most people, the 2nd of July just goes by and probably most people are not paying any attention. They're waiting for the 4th, right? So why is that? What happened on the 2nd? All right,
Sharon or Anastasia, do you guys have any answers to that? We'd love to hear that in the comments. My guess is that it took from the 2nd to the 4th for it to be delivered. That it was made on the 2nd and then it took some time to get there. I don't know if it was sent in the mail or something like that.
Yeah, right. That makes sense because, of course, there was no internet back then. There was no instant communication. So if there was some sort of key event on the 2nd, not everybody would have found out about it on Facebook or X immediately and would have been scrutinized by the media and so on like that. No. So you're on the right track. The answer is that there was actually a vote on the 2nd of July on a resolution pertaining to independence. So it wasn't yet signed, it wasn't yet declared, but there was a vote, and the delegates from the various colonies, which now were becoming states, basically they voted and they said, yes, we want to be independent. So in effect, there's an argument to be made that the United States became a country at that moment. There wasn't anything else necessary to do. So there is an argument to be made that Americans should be celebrating Independence Day on the 2nd. But then there was a little bit more work to do to get that document ready and presented to the delegates and then have them literally sign it. And that's the thing that we have is the Declaration of Independence is a crucial signed historical document. And, well, you can see right at the top in Congress, July 4th, 1776. So basically, they needed those extra couple days because things moved a little bit more slowly back then. So this turned out to be, okay, you can kind of choose, right? It's one or the other. This turned out to be the most memorable of the two things that they did, which are so closely related. And on the 4th of July, we have the document being signed. So that turned out to be the national birthday. If it was the 2nd, we'd probably be fine too, but then we'd also end up trying to explain, why is it the 2nd when the Declaration was signed on the 4th? So either way, somebody's gonna have a complaint perhaps, or have to do some nitpicking, but that's the way history is. It doesn't always resolve in such a neat fashion. So the 4th of July is it. We have a Declaration of Independence, meaning the United States is formally declaring itself via its leaders to be a new country. Now, before we get into a little bit of the details concerning it, because obviously we don't have that much time for details in a little introduction like this, I just want to go back a little bit and talk about what led to the signing of the Declaration. It didn't just happen. It wasn't quick at all. There had been a long run up to this very significant moment. And that run up is part of what we call the American Revolution, right? The chapter of history, which did not close with July 4th, but actually continued thereafter for arguably another 10 to 13 years. And so it actually had started as well, again, arguably about 11 or so years before. So it took a long time for Americans to decide, yeah, we want a new country from scratch, fresh, absolutely new. Why did it have to be absolutely new? Well, let's see if folks know what they're looking at here. In the lead up, what was going on? For instance, what does this image here capture as a moment that brings the Declaration of Independence closer, but is not not the Declaration, of course, itself. What does this historical painting capture? Yeah, exactly. What does this historical painting capture? What's going on? We got some guys on a boat and they're dumping stuff over the edge. Somebody here must know. What is it that they are dumping?
Sharon or Anastasia, we'd love to hear from you on this one. Share in the comments what your guess
Sharon
is
says
for what this
Boston
is.
Tea Party. Yes, absolutely. Right. So what was going on here was tea was being brought into the Americas via the British Empire, which was worldwide, and tea was being brought from places like India. And there was a tax on that tea, and the colonists said, we're not drinking it. They went on board in Boston, they threw it overboard because they'd already been arguing with the British Empire for about 8 years going on about this whole issue of taxes and who gets to put taxes on Americans, because there had been something called the Stamp Act back in 1765, and the Stamp Act said that if you want to publish a newspaper or you want a license or any type of document at all that you want to publicize, you're going to have to put a stamp on it, and you're going to have to pay for that stamp. It's a government stamp that says this is a legal document, and you're going to have to pay, right? So it was a tax, and the colonists were quite upset with that, and they said, hey, you can't do that to us because we're British citizens, and British citizens have this special right, this special privilege, which they expressed as no taxation without representation. Meaning, you can't just tell us there's new taxes. First, you have to ask us. First, you have to involve us. We need to vote on things. You have to respect us as citizens. And the British Empire refused to do that. They ended up having to back down on the Stamp Act, but then they put the tax on tea, and then the colonists said, oh, no, you don't, and we're dumping that tea, and it just kept getting to be a bigger and bigger argument. And, of course, long story short, by the 4th of July, 1776, the colonists had had enough, and their leaders, the Founding Fathers, said, we can't do this anymore. We don't want to be a part of somebody else's country or empire. We want to be a country of our own. So they said, why is that? Well, it's not just about taxes. It's about something more important than that. It's about the fact that we, as individual colonists, individual human beings, are not being respected by our government. And there should be a country in the world that does that, that respects the rights of its citizens. Does anybody know what special rights it is I'm about to highlight here from the Declaration of Independence? It's a very famous phrase, right? That is right there in the early section of the Declaration that says, why should there be a new country? There's 3 rights. It's a beautiful list. It's one of my personal favorite things in all of history. Thomas Jefferson, let's get a little bit of a giveaway, who wrote this document, was really specific and said, okay, these are the rights that individuals have that should be defended. All right? If you're not sure what they are, here they are for you. And yes, this is a question featured on the little worksheet that you've got there, right? The idea is every individual has, they call them unalienable. That means you can't lose them. Nobody can ever take them away. They belong to you as a human being. Everybody has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There is the great list of 3 that was highlighted in the Declaration. So that became the new idea for a country, along with other things, of course. But that really is the standout phrase of the Declaration that explains why the United States came to be. So let's talk about how this Declaration was adopted, who was responsible for it, and what ultimately happened. So we're going to go now to a beautiful historical painting by an American artist named John Trumbull. And here he is capturing the moment as an artist, because there was no photography back then. So nothing that we are used to when it comes to the news. This would have been the greatest news item in the history of America, but there are no photographs, right? So, and this artist was not there at the time. He would have been going from some documentation concerning what happened, did his best shot at representing it for us. And so what he did was he showed a really important group in the center of the painting, presenting the Declaration to various officials that are part of what was called the Second Continental Congress, this assembly of American leaders. Let's focus in on that important group there, and most importantly, the ones presenting the Declaration. So the main author of the Declaration is the tall guy there who, without his wig, would have had a slightly red hair, as you can see. And he's the one holding the paper, and that is being presented to the Congress. Does anybody know who that is before I reveal the name? He became, I'll give you guys a hint, he became the 3rd president of the United States. Here is a little bit more mature portrait of him. Does anybody know who that is? The main author of the Declaration and the man who became the 3rd president of the United States. All right, Sharon got the answer correct. That is Thomas Jefferson. Very good. And he is the main author, but there were other contributors. And let's take a look at least a couple of them here. You can see in that group over on the left-hand side, we have some other pretty famous characters. I would say this one here is perhaps one of the most recognizable in particular. From that portrait, and I'll give you another one here, a little bit updated. Who knows who that is? He never became a president. That's kind of a curious fact. Was never a president. Certainly considered one of the founding fathers. And also, another hint, he was a famous scientist. Did experiments with kites and electricity. Okay, Sharon is doing very well here with the answers. Okay, yes, the answer is Benjamin Franklin. So he was also a part of the creation of the document. And for those of you that are working on your worksheet and drawing those lines here and connecting the names and so on, yes, Benjamin Franklin is very recognizable because he's found on the $100 bill. In case you're wondering about the other notes of American money, I'll have that at the end here as we get there. So let's talk a little bit more about, well, let's have one more of the signers. So we got Thomas Jefferson, the main author. Another signer was Benjamin Franklin, as we said. And then we have The second president of the United States, I mentioned his name before. It was the one that wrote to his wife to say he thought that the 2nd of July would be the birthday. And that is, host says, yes, thank you. Good job, Amelia. John Adams, excellent. Okay, so John Adams indeed. Right. So in case you're wondering who all the other guys are, we of course don't have time for that. If you go on Wikipedia, you can find the painting, you can type it in, the painting of the Declaration of Independence, and they'll give you an answer key, and you can go ahead and find out who was there from New York, who was there from North Carolina, and so on. You can find all the various characters that were involved. So you can enjoy that. Now, here is something a little bit surprising. Notice that I mentioned John Adams, 2nd president of the United States. Thomas Jefferson, 3rd president of the United States. They were present. However, the first president of the United States wasn't even there. I bet a few people know who I'm talking about, right? The first president of the United States was not there, did not sign the Declaration of Independence. What was his name? First question. And why wasn't he even there? What do you guys know about that?
Okay, I did not know that he wasn't there and that he didn't sign. That is surprising to me.
Well, there you go, right? Okay, so the answer
And Sharon is on fire with all these answers.
Washington was not there. And the answer is, why wasn't he there? Well, he was leading the Continental Army. He was the commander-in-chief, right? He had to fight the war, which was already underway. So basically, it had been since let's call it, the battles of Lexington and Concord in 1775, the Battle of Bunker Hill, Siege of Boston, all of those kinds of things. He was currently defending New York at the time, and then went on to do all the other tremendous things that he did. So he was busy. So he has a good excuse for not signing the Declaration of Independence. I'm sure he would have signed it had he been there. He was already busy doing other things. A couple other founding fathers that did not sign the Declaration that people will recognize the names of would be Alexander Hamilton. I'm not sure why he wasn't there. I do know that Hamilton was one of Washington's aides, so he may already have been involved in, again, the actual fighting. And James Madison, who was the author of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, he was not present, but I don't have the exact reason why. But nonetheless, he became an advocate of all of these things. And of course, later on, James Madison became a president of the United States. He was number 4. So for those of you drawing those lines, so he didn't sign the Declaration, James Madison, but he did become president. Same for George Washington. Did not sign, but became a president. Alexander Hamilton did not sign and did not become a president. Some people get confused about that. Hamilton never was president. He was Secretary of the Treasury. So he was an important official, but not a president. So yeah, you've got your worksheet, I hope, and we're getting to the end of things here, so we're not going to be much longer. And you've got lines to be drawing here, right? So the main author, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington did not sign, later became president. Okay, and so on, right? I'll show you the answer key at the end here. So just for fun, before we wrap things up, right, let's talk about who made it onto the money. So the founders definitely made their way onto a lot of our money. George Washington is on the $1 bill. And many people don't know there is actually a $2 bill. And when you find one, and if it's in good shape, you should keep it. It's a good collector's item. That's Thomas Jefferson. So he's on the $2 bill. And then on the 5, we have Abraham Lincoln. So he's a much later president, of course, during the Civil War. On the $10 bill, we have Alexander Hamilton. So one of the founding fathers that did not sign and that was not president, but nonetheless important enough to make it on some money. So you can draw that line. Alexander Hamilton is on the money. And then we have Andrew Jackson, who was the 7th president, so not considered one of the founding fathers. He's on the 20. Ulysses S. Grant, much later president after Abraham Lincoln. He's on the 50. And then we go back to Benjamin Franklin. So we got a line from Ben Franklin to is on the money. All right, so that's just the fun part, okay? Let's get back to the serious part about the Declaration of Independence. That was an act of treason, ladies and gentlemen. That was serious business. The founding fathers and all the people of the colonies were British citizens. When they said they were making a new country, they were committing treason. And that's a really big deal, right? So they had to be serious. They had to say, this is what we want, and we're going to fight for it. And if we win, then, all right, history will say something other than we betrayed our mother country. History will say we made a new country. And that's what it does say, of course. They're both true. But boy, was it a big deal to sign the Declaration. By signing, I'm just going to read right off of this, historical marker here. By signing the Declaration of Independence, the 56 Americans pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. It was no idle pledge. 9 signers died of wounds during the Revolutionary War. 5 were captured or imprisoned. Wives and children were killed, jailed, mistreated, or left penniless. 12 signers' houses were burned to the ground. 17 lost everything they owned. No signer defected. That means they never gave up. Their honor, like their nation, remains intact. That's the part that gives me goosebumps. Because when I ask you the question, would you sign the Declaration? Well, you're going to be responsible for creating an amazing country, and you can be proud of that. But when you sign it, you also know you're in serious trouble. Are you willing to go through that? The founding fathers of the United States were willing to go through that. If I had been there, I sure hope that I would have had the same amount of courage, and you, like me, can go, and now here I'm going to go do it. I'm going to attach my signature to the Declaration of Independence. There it is. I'm not going to make mine the biggest. It's pretty close. Let's zoom in on that for a second here. It's pretty close. There I am, Scott Powell. I've signed. I agree. I would put my life on the line for what this represents. I think it's fantastic. It's not the biggest, but it's pretty close, right? What is the biggest signature? There it is. Boy, is that a flashy signature. That is the signature of John Hancock. So for those of you who want to know who's got the biggest signature, that's the one, right? Sometimes people say, put your John Hancock there. That's what they mean, right? They mean put your signature like John Hancock did for real on the Declaration of Independence. All right, folks. So that's my answer. I would sign it. I hope that once you've studied American history in detail, you will feel the same way. I think it's a tremendous moment. It's more than worthy of fireworks. We have a country that has been around since 1776. How old does that make it? Who can do the quick mental math? The answer is 248 years as of this July. So it's coming along. 250 is a pretty great time. So it's coming up in 2 years. And so America's been around that long. It's been an amazing journey. There is an amazing story to learn, of course. Where can you learn it in full? There's so much more to say. We're just wrapping things up now. There's so much more to say. Please come check out the Knowable World YouTube channel with mini lessons galore. And come and find us at Knowable World, and we will gladly help you. However old you may be, if you've got really young ones, K-2, then you can do History Detectives. If you've got students in the elementary classes, terrific. We have elementary classes for free this summer and starting up this fall. If you have junior, senior high students that need this material properly, we can do that for you too. We have classes for students from 7th through 12th grade. So please come find us at Knowable World. It's been nice to be here with you today. And so that's kind of where we're going to wrap things up. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the answer key on the page if you want to do a quick checkup on how you've done. There's my answer key for you. And at this point, I guess, Amelia, it's just responses, questions, comments. I'd be happy with
Yes.
any.
And we're going to be giving away the bundle of the live classes from this summer. So it's basically a full month of classes that you're going to get access to, 1 hour classes. They're both for elementary and the middle to high school age range. So Sharon, Kate has answered every single question. So you are going to be the winner of that prize. Thank you so much for joining us live. Go ahead and message me. And I will get you all set up with that prize from Knowable World. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And if you guys are watching this on the replay, be sure to go ahead and comment replay so that we can see your answers and interact with you after this class is live. I also went ahead and shared a link to the YouTube channel in the comments, as well as a link to be able to sign up for more free classes from Knowable World. If you enjoyed this class, I highly recommend you go to their website and check out the other live classes that they have coming up this month. They have some really cool stuff, and it is an hour class, so you're going to get even more information than you did today. Thank you so much, Scott, for joining us. And I really appreciated you coming on here and teaching this class. I think that it really highlighted the importance of learning about these different historical moments, what goes into them, and really highlighted the importance of the art, the historical art that is the record of these different events that happened in history. I look forward to seeing more live classes from you